This week, I do serpent, tiger, ram, and perform Weeb explanation no jutsu.
And I practice my #1 Naruto run.
Believe it!
Hi, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Garrett.
And we watch anime. Garrett, this episode is number 23, which ends in 3, which means once again we tackle the big 3. This time we go from pirates to their mortal enemies, the ninja, to talk about everyone's favorite, hyperactive, blonde, loudmouth shinobi, Naruto. If there was a pie chart that represented how I became a weeb, this show would be a healthy 22% of that chart. But before we begin, Garrett, tell new fans what the big hubbub is all about.
Pirates, ninjas, doesn't matter. We're in high school. Believe it!
Yeah, Date Bayo, in fact. This episode is also special because we've invited a first-hand witness to someone who experienced my Naruto mania. We are dubbing him our Weeb wannabe, Tavis. Welcome, Tavis.
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Naruto is really what got me in there. It really popped my cherry in that Leaf Village.
It's the hidden cherry village, and that's what. So,
oh, what village you from? Hidden Leaves? Mist? No, the Pop Cherry Village.
I'm the Kage of that village. So, process aside, so we wanted to. So the reason why I invited Tavis onto the show, and Tavis, you can elaborate a little bit, is that for the longest time, anime wasn't a cool thing, especially when I went to college in like 2003. And so I had to kind of pick and choose who I thought would be like a reasonable person to introduce my fandom to. And Tavis here was in college with me. He's also in college with Garrett as well. And he introduced me to things like Romance of the Three Kingdoms and like the history of Lu Bu. And I thought, this guy's a safe guy to introduce to Naruto. So I actually made you, Tavis, sit down and watch Naruto all the way from the beginning to Shippuden. And you hung with it, Tavis. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, these forced dates were amazing. And whenever I had to explain myself to anyone else, I would tell them like, "Oh, I'm trying to learn Japanese," and so we'd watch this with, with the subtitles on there. And I still don't know any Japanese, but I watched this religiously. It was a great experience.
Yes, and you got all the way to Shippuden. That's pretty awesome, man. That's a lot of episodes to watch. So, Garrett, Tavis, we're going to be doing, since we have a guest on, a panel this week. Right. And we're going to kind of do 3 levels of Naruto watching. The first is me, the weeb, of course. I watched it all the way to the end. I have finished Naruto. In fact, I have a funny story after it, which I will explain to Tavis and I will elaborate on. The second one is the first-time watcher with Garrett, you always are. And then we have the middle one, which is the person who watched it, who kind of would be interested in this kind of genre, but is kind of lapsed, hasn't done it in a long time. So we're going to be operating in these 3 things. The question we're going to attempt to answer this week is, why this show? Why was it popular here? And finally, is it worth watching it from the beginning? Like, we are going to be exclusively talking about, like, the baby Naruto years. We're not talking about, like, when he's super awesome and has a lot of powers. We're talking about when he was, like, kind of useless. So those are the 3 questions we're going to answer.
That'll be episodes 33, 43, and 53.
Yes, exactly.
But for 23.
But for 23, we're sticking with baby Naruto. So let's start with the beginning. Let's talk about, like, some initial impressions. Garrett, and then we'll go to Tavis. Garrett, what are your initial impressions of the show? What are some things you like? What are some things that irked you? Go for it, my man.
Naruto is junk food.
Yeah.
It's candy. It's McDonald's. You shovel it down. It's cute. It's funny. It's action-packed. They know how to draw a story out like nobody's business. Nothing like 8-episode fight scenes. And they just it's easy peasy lemon squeezy, and you can hop right in. I don't know if you can hop right in story wise, but you could certainly hop right in entertainment wise. And I think they hit all the buttons that make people go, this is fun and escapism, and I want to watch.
Agreed. And so, Tavis, I did a risk making this the first one I introduced to you. And, Garrett, it's low risk. if it stinks, I'm just going to send him one next week. That's how this show works. But for you, this was, a hard time. I actually had to go to like DC++ to download it. It wasn't that easy to get. We didn't have Netflix at the time.
Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, those who are watching our show right now, you might not know what DC++ was. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was a land area network, where you had to download via BitTorrent and only people on the network. So whatever college you went to, call it, I don't know, UConn, Harvard, SUNY Albany,
that's wherever
you went, everyone who went to that college shared their content on the same network. And as a result of this, if someone had something, your download speeds were ridiculously fast.
We're seconds.
Within seconds, you could have a whole season of Family Guy, which was very popular back in the day.
Yes.
Eat your heart out, LimeWire.
Which was like, let's download I Hope. It says like, it would be like, man who is of family, not a virus. Like, and hope to God your computer to get an STD. That would be LimeWire. So Tavis, back to what we're saying. I had to pirate to get Naruto to you. I had to bring my laptop physically to you to watch it. Did I do well? Was this the one to introduce new fans to? What do you say?
So I gotta say, young Naruto, he is the worst character out of every character in the show. Like, he is the most annoying. Like, Sasuke, Kakashi, Sakura. Like, they're all people that I'm like, I wish they were the main character. Their storyline is appealing. But Naruto is just this brat. And I get it. He has, like, this dark past. But it's really hard to like him until the story keeps picking up.
Yeah, I don't know, Tavis. I got to be honest with you. I made it 9 episodes in. Sakura appears useless.
I would agree with you on the useless scale. Like, Sakura kind of stays there, and then Naruto kind of like goes from there, and then Date Beos himself right up to the top.
Well, that's just because she doesn't have as many influencers yet at this level. But then she grows in influencers, and her split personality is pretty.
Yeah, that's the split personality is kind of a MacGuffin. You don't really see that too often. It's like a thing that is in the beginning that you don't really notice later. It's weird. I don't know. So. I would say I hope that, like, and I know it obviously didn't turn you off enough to watch it continuously, which is good, and I'm glad you liked it, as you said before. So the question is, the first question we're going to ask is, why is this show part of the big three? So let's first start off with the first 3 episodes, and if we're going to answer the question of why is this show so good, these first 3 episodes aren't great. In fact, I would say that the first 3 episodes, if you were to ask anything about Naruto and you only had the first 3 episodes, it would be blonde ninjas are annoying, even tinier ninjas are really annoying and very pervy, and they get diarrhea sometimes. That's what you would get out of Naruto if you just watched the first 3 episodes. But Garrett, what did you take from it? Tavis, what did you take from just the beginning part?
For me, built for kids.
Mm-hmm.
This is the type of show that, and I have no idea when Naruto is on. You and I constantly talk about in this podcast how Cartoon Network and Adult Swim was like the gateway drug for a lot of shows. If you told me that Naruto came from Adult Swim, I would be shocked, because to me, if I was a 10-year-old Garrett, I would want to watch Naruto eating my Frosted Flakes on a Saturday morning in front of the TV.
Yeah.
And those first few episodes, they're entirely goofy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that it was directed at a younger audience. And hook 'em young, grow the show. Obviously, I'm only 9 episodes in, but I would say hook 'em young, grow the show with the audience.
Right.
And you've got a built-in audience. That's what I took from it.
Right. Tavis, would you agree that, like, it wasn't tough as a college student to watch this for the first time, this being your first anime, that it kind of has like a little bit of a kiddish in the beginning, and now you want to grow from it? Would you say that?
I think if you gave me the Firefly sales pitch of this, where like, hey, it's only 1 season and this season is the best thing you'll ever watch, then I would have been out after like 1 or 2 episodes. But knowing that when we started it, there was, I don't even know how many seasons, like 6 or 7 seasons, 8 seasons. Knowing that this wasn't going to be the end-all be-all, then I agree completely. But I needed to know that it was going to be more than just that Sunday morning, eat your cereal that Garrett talks about.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if you watch it just based on the theme songs, which we'll definitely dive into, the first theme song is very like, hello kids, Something rocks. We're gonna run and jump and play and everything's great. Like, that's the first theme song. And then you get to, like, episode 44, entering the tuning exams, and all of a sudden that bass comes in. I'm like, okay, I'm a teenager. I'm ready to upgrade my cereal now. I can watch this a little later because I sleep in. Like,
I don't have time for cereal, Mom. Throw me a Pop-Tart.
Flip it and call it a day. Like, I'm on the tuning exam, Mom. Like, it does kind of grow with you. And it is really goofy in the beginning. Just to answer your question before, Garrett, Naruto first published in Shonen Jump. Now, this is a good opportunity for me to do another explainer, is that most of these anime come out in magazine forms in Japan first, and every chapter. So you have to get weekly magazines to get each chapter, as opposed to where we normally get it, which is Tankobon, which we had to buy individual books. That came later. So it was first published in the magazine Weekly Shonen Jump, which is like the best one, in 1997, and the anime came out in 2002.
87, you said?
97.
97.
Not 87. Oh my god, if it was 87, they'd be like, hi there. I'm Naruto. It would be like Nutcracker.
It'd have One Piece level episodes.
Yes, it would. And the guy who wrote this thing, Masashi Kishimoto, which is like really his only anime, is valued now at $25 million just from this one property. So I like to talk about how rich the big three authors.
I'm not gonna lie, considering how popular Naruto is, I think he signed some pretty bad contracts in his life.
But also, like, One Piece is just still going. It's still going. It's got plays. It's got like it's just going. It's like never stopping.
Yeah, One Piece. I would argue Naruto's probably got like Harry Potter type money, and J.K. Rowling's a freaking billionaire.
Right.
I mean, it was Naruto that invaded Area 51. So, I mean, those paychecks have got to be pretty big.
So, Garrett, this is another explainer for you. There was a Facebook meme that came out that said that if a lot of people came to Area 51 in Naruto run towards the base, they said they were going to eventually get to the alien because they can't get us all. That's what they said. So, and people actually showed up.
Because 2019 was such a beautiful year, because instead of everything 2020 brought us, we could worry about a bunch of dorks trying to storm Area 51.
So next, let's talk about the show a little bit. Garrett, Tavis, kind of bounce off each other. What is this show about? Maybe just show like what the intro explains about what the show's all about.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, Tavis, I'll kick it off. So Naruto is a young student. He's a troublemaker. He's cool. He's got protagonist blonde hair of the time.
Believe it.
That's his input.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you.
He wears a jumpsuit that would make Muggsy Bogues jealous. Like, and apparently he lives in this Japanese village that has like the Mount Rushmore of Hokages overlooking the village. This carved statue that he continuously spray paints. But no, he's just sort of this rapscallion, if you will. And clearly he's meant for something greater, and he has people that care about him, even though he has no direct relatives that we know of, at least through the first 10 episodes. And we sort of understand that he has this dark, deep history that they've tried to bury, where there was this villain that came to town. Was it the Nine-Tailed Fox?
Yeah, it was a demon fox. Yeah.
The Nine-Tailed Demon Fox came, and the fourth great Hokage defeated him, and he managed to take this demon soul and put it in a newborn baby's umbilical cord, which is a really strange way to store places.
What? It was just like...
Well, Tavis, you just had a child. You might have a demon stored in your child's like decrepit umbilical cord.
You know, we did it for the village.
You know what I'm noticing? Like, if I didn't know better, like it could have just as easily been like he raspberried the demon in there, be like. I know better, but I still think it's funny to think about it that way.
So you got this guy Naruto, and he clearly goes to some type of academy.
Right.
And he's reached this level where he sort of needs to stop being the class clown, and he needs to kick up his seriousness a notch to become an elite level ninja. I believe, is it Genin is the level that they've attained?
Genin, yeah.
Genin. So it's Genin, which is like your base level ninja. So when people come to you with ninja needs, which by the way, totally blew my mind that you would go to like an office that some Ecuadorian dude was working at and be like, "Excuse me, sir, I have need for ninja," and like. Based upon the seriousness level of what you needed, they would be like, "Oh, you need ninja level A, B, C, D."
I can imagine, like, when you really think about it and you break it down, like, the people, like, the ability to solve problems in this world is very limited. It's like, I lost my cat. Get a ninja. I need someone to help me pick up groceries. Get a ninja. Are they covered with weapons? You know it. Like,
I gotta say, their system is a whole lot better than the Craigslist ninjas that I've requested before, though.
it is literally like, it's like, you know, it's just basically, it's like the guy who says, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens, but for ninja. Like, I'm not saying you need a ninja, but you should get a ninja.
So do you think, is ninja considered a trade school there? Like,
that's
are they just like AC HVAC like
right.
academy?
What's that school? DeVry. It's the DeVry Institute is basically.
or like when you and I, Kyle, and when you and I grew up in Dutchess County, New York, like if you weren't making it in high school, you went to BOCES.
Yes, it's basically DeVry or BOCES for ninjas. And it's interesting that you guys mentioned this stuff because the first question I had was that answers like the why this show is that it takes all the fun parts of ninja without all like the boring historical stuff, right? It's like, you know how they said that they disappeared and a log came in its place? We got that. You know, the fact that they were all farmers and peasants who just wanted to get, you know, away from the, you know, that's not what we're going to use that. We're going to use the fun stuff only. And I think that's what, like, for surface level, what Western audiences want to think about ninja, they want to think about just the fun stuff.
Right, but to be fair, last week you and I, 35-year-old men, spent an hour filleting Golden Kamui for all of that deep dive BS because that's what excites us in our mid-30s.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. So this show gives you all killer no filler, like the Sum 41 song, and it gives you all of the, you know, it gives you all the things about ninja that are fun, and then takes out all the stuff that's not. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like that to me answers the question of like, why is this show so popular? I don't know. Would you guys agree with that? Like, we're not all none of us are.
If I could,
sorry, go ahead, Tavis.
Yeah, so if I could, and I agree with that. And when I start thinking about the boring parts about being a ninja, like within this first season of Naruto, like his very first mission is that first mission you get in every RPG that you hate. It is just like, hey, escort this bridge builder to the next village, like, and then you have guarantees of fighting nothing but like squirrels or anything on your way, and it's just like, all right, I get it. This is the boring part of being a ninja.
You have nothing to do but fight squirrels.
When you kill them, Garrett gives you money, weapons, and armor. Okay, somehow it's packed in there. So, if you really were to problematize this thing, is that this really is a town that is okay with children soldiers. Like we think now of children soldiers. We think of that as like a human rights violation in everyday world now. But this show's like, hey, you just finished kindergarten, get throwing ninja stars and knives and stuff. So, I mean, it's a fun show.
I think I could find this village on a map.
This is pop music.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you said. I know you said all killer, no filler. That's a lie because you don't make a 4-episode fight scene without filler.
Yeah, that's true.
However, I understand exactly what you're saying in that it's pure fun and it's not meant to be taken too seriously. And I can absolutely see. Look, when we were growing up, we're all within 2 or 3 years of one another. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there was all the time we played with our friends and pretended to be Power Rangers, beating up putties, and on the schoolyard, like unfortunately, the same kids would be the putties over and over and over again. Right.
Remember those?
Punch him in the chest. Go down, Jeff. Go down. But I can absolutely see a little kid in 2002 when we're in high school seeing Naruto and being like, this is cool, like 100%.
And I think, so this is the second point I was thinking about while I was rewatching it. The question of like, why this show is so popular as well is, and it's specifically to answer the second question of why it's so popular here in the States, is this was one of the first shows that I know that didn't try to put Western spins onto obviously Japanese things. Case in point, if you watched Pokemon as a kid and one of the characters, Rock, made onigiri or rice balls, if you listen to the English dub of it, they'd be like, man, these are great jelly donuts. I love jelly donuts. When they're obviously made out of rice. They're obviously not jelly donuts.
So you're saying that when you watch the English version of Naruto, it was ramen all day, every day.
But they didn't say, like, this is not the shadow clone technique. This is the shadow clone jutsu. Like, they actually used the word jutsu to explain it. Like, they so obviously didn't make it Western just so that, like, they didn't, like, insult our intelligence, right? I feel like I appreciated that. They were like, this is Japanese. It's going to have Japanese things. It's going to have Japanese food. It's going to have Japanese, like, people are going like, suya, 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 suya throughout the entire show. And that's super Japanese too. So, like, you know, let us have it. Let us figure it out on our own. Let us be like, what's that all about? And do it. Sorry to Garrett.
What does soyo mean?
So that is, so when you have like a festival, you know, the ones where they're carrying things and they're like jumping up and down with them, like usually a statue or shrine or Buddha or something like that. It's kind of like what the guys who are carrying all the festival stuff say as they're marching. It's kind of like us going like, hop, ho, ho, ho. It's them going like, soya, 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 soya. It's like, it's basically like a festival sound you make, essentially.
Got it.
So, but they
Believe it.
Oh my God, I love it, Tavis. You're really playing your part well. So, so let's go further into the show.
Sure.
I think the third thing that I think that is good about the show, it's kind of like Hunger Games. It's kind of like Star Wars. It's kind of like Harry Potter in that it has lore that it gives to you right away for you to like obsess over. So just like you said, the ranking system, this is a Genin, this is a Chunin, this is a Jonin. When you get really big, you want to become the Hokage, and each Kage is named after a cool sounding elemental land, like the Mizukage and the Tsuchikage, and like each thing is like got cool spell names. I think if you really want a really dedicated fan nerd base, give them like specificity of the world that they can just go to town on. I don't know if that's what you guys felt as well.
So, to build off that, like one of the lores that I really like, and I think this maybe carries on a little past the first season,
right?
But is all the eyeball stuff that happens in Naruto.
Oh yeah,
like the Sharingan, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great. It's just like, oh, you know, this is a normal fish merchant that I've crossed. Oh my gosh, his eyeballs. And in my real life, I remember that Naruto helped me because when I got pink eye, instead of being sick, I was like a superhero for like 3 days that no one wanted to hang around with because of my immense power.
It's your Kekkei Genkai. It's a bloodline limit of someone farting.
So the first time we get introduced to that is with Kakashi Sensei, who's like sort of like the first mentor to useless Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto. But I kept calling him Kama Eye because it was just like a red eye with 3 commas around it.
Oh, I see you're saying COMMA. Okay, yeah. We'll get. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse too much because I want people to be able to follow us. So to kind of clarify what's going on, Kakashi. So every time Naruto, who learned he was a demon fox, he got through the graduation. The beginning scene was kind of fun because he learned this move where he makes a bunch of himself. Is that since he graduated, he's now paired with a team. So we're now
right. But before he's paired with a team, we find out. Before we get into the detail of him being the fox, he's put into this situation in the very first episode where this teacher at the academy that he goes to, pre-ninja academy, pre-nin, if you will, and
we have classes pre-ninja chunin.
So this teacher cares about him. Obviously, he's kind of like little orphan Annie. You know, he's a jokester. But we find out he's hyper powerful. And in the end of that first episode, he pulls off some interesting jutsu. And for those at home who don't understand what jutsu is there's sort of this in addition to being a ninja and everything that you associate with being a ninja, whether it be sneaky, whether it be stealth, whether it be missions, whether
Ninja
it be
stars.
fighting,
Yeah.
there's also an element in this show of magic and deception and illusion.
Mhm.
And so jutsu is essentially, to me, a illusion, a trick, a move.
Mhm.
It's a, you know, it could be an attack, it could be in a defense, but it is a move. And so we find out really early that Naruto is hyper skilled, so that despite his buffoonery, he's actually got a lot going on. Sorry,
Right.
Cal, go on.
Yeah, and he was able to pull off this one move called the Shadow Clone Jutsu, which everyone now knows how to do the finger cross to go Kagebuchi no Jutsu, and then it becomes like a big thing. Now, that's another thing that happens with ninja is that you're able to do like pantomime hand moves, like you're able to vogue and make ninja skills out of it, and they're like horse, ram, cow, mouse, and like all that stuff. And then,
Kyle, have you ever read the books by Lev Grossman or seen the show on Sci-Fi called The Magicians?
no, I never seen it.
It's a terrible YA trilogy
Right.
that I for some reason liked, that they made into an even more terrible, that I for some reason watched 5 season TV show.
Yeah.
And when they do magic, they do like
they do like Madonna Vogues. Yeah. And apparently there's a reason to do that. I know there's like, you know, weebs are going to get on my case for that, but it's true. And then he's able to make a lot of clones of himself, real clones. He gets then paired, we'll go back to where we were before, he gets set with a 3-person team that consists of him, who's like the worst in class, Sakura, who's the most mediocre in class in my mind, and Uchiha Sasuke, the edgelord boy, who is like who is the best in class, and they kind of balance each other out. And so let's talk about those guys for a quick second, including their teacher, Hatake Kakashi, also known as Pink Eye, Kama Eye, whatever you want to go with.
So Kyle, you introduced me to this terminology, edgelord, which the best way I can associate it for the folks at home coming from a noob perspective, think of the lead singer of AFI. How emo can you emo the emo?
Yeah.
And that's an edgelord.
And Sasuke really does, because he doesn't have likes. He has a lot of things he dislikes, and he has to kill someone. That's his Tinder profile. That's his Tinder profile. When he introduced himself to the team, that's what he said. And then to show how useless Sakura was, when she
what an awful icebreaker.
I know. And she's like, I like, and she stares at Sasuke, and she's like, but I may really like, yeah! That's like the conversation. And then Naruto's like, I'm going to be Hokage. Tavis, hit it.
Believe it.
Thank you. So, and then they meet Kakashi Hatake. We kind of go into a test now. They thought they were kind of all set, but then they got put into this thing which is known as the survival test. And I think past like the annoying beginning, this is what made me kind of understand what the show was. So maybe we'll go through Tavis and Garrett. You guys can work with each other. Talk about this test. What is it all about? What did it entail, and what was the kind of big twist at the end of it? So Garrett, yeah, let's talk about the survival thing, because that's one of the arcs.
Right. So you have your 3 characters. You have Sasuke, Sakura, and you have Naruto, and they've been put into this little pod, if you will, and they're brought into the woods by Kakashi Sensei. Now, Kakashi is the coolest guy in the world because he's young, but he's got gray hair that
hair.
Goes at like a right angle for 2 feet, and he wears a bandana over his eye, which we spoke about briefly before, the Shingara eye. We'll get to there. How they go out into the woods with this guy, and it's his job to put them to the test. This is the first sort of rite of passage to can you become a ninja? And he puts them out there, and he says, I have 2 Christmas bells on my hip. Why Christmas bells? I have no idea. I guess they celebrate Christmas in Japan. And because they look like balls. And he says, you have to get these 2 balls for me, but there's 3 of you. So the only people who will move forward and stay in this program are the 2 people who get the balls from me. Now, we progress from there, and what we see is that Naruto is irrationally confident in his abilities.
He's basically, his plan is to just like charge at Kakashi and go like, ah! Like windmilling at him.
he is every protagonist in every movie ever,
Right.
in that the raw material is greater than anything,
Right.
but he just needs to learn how to control it.
Right.
And then you have Sasuke, who's, his rival, but he has more skill than Naruto could ever dream of having.
But
right?
he's so emo that he thinks everybody's useless. He's like, oh.
Right. He looks down on other people. Naruto says it's all about me. Sasuke says no one else is as good as me.
Right.
And Sakura is
no one's as good as Sasuke.
No, wait. Sakura. There's a technical term in Japanese. Waste of space.
Fangirl?
She is a waste of space. And she just literally cries the entire 3-episode arc, chasing people around because she's got a girl crush on Sasuke.
Mm-hmm.
And so they fail this test miserably because everyone thinks about themselves. And guess what? The test was about teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, but sir, sensei, there's only 2 balls. If there was all 3 of us, and he's like, well, you should have sacrificed for the team. And the way that he deems them worthy, that they need to move forward, that they have learned something, that he has this little book that the current Hokage has, where he has failed every student that's ever come through there.
Right.
And it comes down to, he says, you can have lunch, and we're going to try this again.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to let you try and pass this test again, but we're going to have lunch first. Sasuke, you can have lunch. Sakura, you can have lunch. Mm-hmm. Naruto, you cannot have lunch. And if anyone feeds him,
mm-hmm.
I will fail you immediately, and you will never come back to this program.
Mm-hmm.
So they are sitting there eating their lunch. Naruto is tied up like Jesus Christ. And they decide...
Mel Gibson directed episode. I know that.
Right, Passion of the Christ. And they say the only way we can succeed is if Naruto has his full strength,
mm-hmm.
so we should feed him.
Right.
And Sakura gives him a freaking dime-sized bite of rice.
But he's so thirsty for Sakura. He's like, yeah, feed it to me, baby.
Yeah, he's like, feed me, baby. Feed me. And their sensei is like, it shall not be.
Yeah. And anything to chime in there, Tavis?
I think this episode arc is really for the parents. This is what buys in the parents to allow their children to watch Naruto for the next 10 years of their life. Right. I mean, who can get behind this teamwork of just following an adult into the woods so that a bunch of children can chase after his balls? I mean, it's really an amazing example of how they pull in the whole family into this story.
Because
arc.
I think you're right. I think that's another thing that that's universal about the show, is that it does have really wholesome messages throughout the show. Like the beginning part is like kids are a factor of nature and nurture, and this is like, it's like the one where he says like, those who break the rules are trash, but those who deny their friends are also worse than trash. I think there's some universality to those stories, but Garrett seems to be a little squeamish about that.
I've got a journal entry here. Dear Diary, Kyle says this show is wholesome. I call bullshit. Because one of Naruto's main skills as an untrained ninja is to turn himself into the sexiest of smoke ladies, and he gives everyone around him, from the fellow Genins to the Academy members to the lead Hokage, the biggest nosebleeds you can ever imagine.
Gary,
okay, that's not for
no
the
parents. In fact, how great was it in episode 2 when we meet the Hokage's grandson?
Yeah.
And Naruto tries to teach him how to do the jutsu to turn into the sexy lady, and he keeps turning into this like whale person.
And I think, here's the thing. I think one thing we have to remind ourselves is that Japan can be a little cavalier with sex, especially in anime, because we have to remember in the Kakashi test, while they're trying to, take his ball or his bell, is that he opens up a book entitled Each a Paradise, which in English means make out paradise. I remember, Tavis, when you were watching it with me that first time, you were like, oh, that's weird. Like, what do you think, Tavis?
Well, I gotta say, so in the beginning, it's I don't know if you've ever read a book in a car, but reading a book with one eye is not very great, which is probably why he's reading this same book. I mean, there's only like 4 books to this series, and in this Naruto's been on for like what 20 years, and he still hasn't caught up to the series. But I think it shows a lot to Naruto that he threatened the spoiler. I think he was like one of the first spoilers, being like, "Hey, I'm going to spoil this ending."
I know that's a good.
He
that's
distracted
a good
him.
strategy. And then it's another thing that like you're like these guys are classy, cool, edgy ninjas, stuff like that. But and he's like he caught Naruto and got behind Naruto. Naruto's like, "Oh no, he's going to hit me with a crazy skill," and he's like, "1,000 years of death," and it literally is taking 2 fingers in the form of a gun and shoving it square in his butthole, and like it goes like so.
So my wife has explained this to me before. So in America, the weebs and noobs out there might be familiar with a move called the ball tap.
Yes.
Right? Which is this weird homoerotic thing where you touch another man's testicles and then say that they're gay.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it.
Believe it. But apparently in Japan, you put your hands together like a gun and poke their pooper.
Mm-hmm. That's how you know you're a real aniki, so to speak. So I once again, I think like we teasing aside, there are some really good wholesome messages. I think there's a lot you can take out of it. And there's also some really goofy parts. It starts to get more and more serious. Eventually, when you get to Naruto Shippuden, in my mind, you're going to miss these moments where it's really silly and goofy because it gets really dark then. It's like, I'm an edgy adult now, so I get to be a little bit less goofy. And so you kind of like, this is kind of like the kid years that you can like look back on fondly, them being innocent and playful and goofy to the point where they get a little edgy. So
I like to think it ages with its fan base.
I agree. I completely agree, Tavis. I think when you watch the show, you can be like at a certain point, like I watched it as a college student, and I thought, the beginning part's a little weird. Then it got to like the Chunin and the Sasuke retrieval arc, and it was top notch for me at that point. And then after that, and then as I got older, then like Shippuden started catching up with me. I think with this show, you're right, Tavis. It grows with its audience. You can catch up with it wherever you're at, and there is some kind of universality with it. I want to talk about where it's going, Garrett. What you hope to look forward to is the next arc that's going to be coming up is I call the Zabuza Haku arc, or we're going to follow this, as Tavis would say, the first episode of Final Fantasy, the first mission in Final Fantasy where you are fighting squirrels. But in this case, it's a dude with a giant butcher blade and a guy who kind of looks like a girl who can control ice. And I have a funny story about you, Tavis, and I hope you are willing for me to share.
Believe it.
So basically, Tavis and I were watching this. We watched the Zabuza arc, and Zabuza is a missing name, which means that he's like a mercenary essentially. He doesn't report to his town, and
he had the biggest Final Fantasy VII sword.
He had the Cloud Buster so hard. It was like, and he was so big that he was able to hit it into a tree and stand on it. That's how big this thing was. And he has with himself a little man boy, boy girl or something like that. He's got some sort of androgynous young child with him whose name is Haku. Now, we don't know the Haku's with Zabuza because when you first meet Haku, he's got a mask on. But Naruto first meets Haku in the flesh while Haku is picking up flowers. Now, Haku is dressed as a woman. He's wearing women's kimonos. He has like women's hair, but he's a boy. But he doesn't state that expressly until this part of the episode. My good friend Tavis and I were watching this episode, and Naruto meets Haku, and Haku is picking flowers, just being a normal kid. And my friend Tavis looks up over to me and goes, "Haku's kind of hot, don't you think?" I know better that this is a sneaky Hansen moment, because Taylor Hansen, a lot of guys in my school thought was hot until they found out it was a guy. And then I go, yeah, and I was being all smug about it too. I was like, I don't know, Tav, it's not for me. And then he's like, no, like, how do you not see it, man? He's hot. She's hot. And then and then we got later into the show, and then Haku goes, silly. I'm not a boy. I'm not a girl. I'm a boy. Tee-hee. And then Tabs like looks at me, and I'm just like, I had like the biggest like eating grin I've ever had in my entire life. And
I stand by my original assessment. I mean, clearly, I mean, the mask is alluring. Picking flower, like the whole thing, very alluring.
But this is a great. But this is on top of that, like this is a great arc because it introduces the Kekkei Genkai. So just for the noobs out there, this quasi noobs, Kekkei Genkai means bloodline limit, and it's the Sharingan is one of them. By the way, it doesn't mean Kama Eye. Sharingan means wheel eye, so it's supposed to look like wheels. And it means that you can't have this ability unless you were born with it. So it's like Maybelline. You have to be born with it. And so it could be any number of abilities. Haku has a Kekkei Genkai, which means that he's the only one with ice abilities in this world that can naturally create ice. And it's one of those cool things that it's like really cool lore that like you find out who is a cool Kekkei Genkai. You learn about another one which is called the Byakugan, which is like they just have like these all white eyeballs and they can like see through people and like see far distances and see 360 around them. It's really cool. And just like Tavis said, it made weird, funky-looking eye infections look kind of cool in this show. So
he also had the ability of sexual confusion. So
that's what you had, right?
Yeah, it's a sexual confusion jutsu.
Sexual confusion no jutsu. Believe it.
No!
What's happening? I'm trying so hard to hit the jutsu. So that's what you're going to look forward to, Garrett, when you watch this. It gets darker. It gets more adult. It gets more serious. It makes Naruto look less useless. It makes Sakura seem even more useless because she doesn't really advance throughout this part of the show. And it makes Sasuke seem more and more like a whiny little douche. But you got a lot of stuff to look forward to in that regard, Garrett. I know we're going to revisit this, especially when we get to the Chunin exam arc. I remember before when we did One Piece that you said, I want to check the internet to say what is the arc that I would say would get you in to this show. That says if you get to this point and you like it, then this is the arc to get to. And that was in the Arlong Park arc in One Piece, which is like episode 44. I will be happy to tell you that you'll get it by the Zabuza arc, and then you'll love it by the Chunin exam arc, because I think Chunin exam arc is the best part of the show. And that's like second season maybe. So there's a lot to work with in that regard. So that's something I'm excited for you to look through. The next thing that I want to talk about, because I know I brought up the really corny music from the first season, I don't want to talk about it. Rocks is a terrible song. I think most people don't like it.
Is Rocks the intro or the outro?
It's the intro, because the outro is
fine. I actually kind of like it.
Yeah.
Because the outro is the song that you don't want to sing out loud because it makes you sound racist. Like, it's the cultivate your hunger before you idealize, cultivate your anger to make
Did
them
you say
all
idealize?
Idealize, yes. It's very English, and you sing it. Like, you can sing along to it. It's like, don't try to riff so rise. Like, you don't want to do that because then you sound like Kim Jong-il from Team America War Police. But that's what the guy sounds like. And unfortunately, that's what he does. So now, the first song was so bad that they didn't do it in the American song. They had like this weird like, it was like a lot of that. And then they ended up going with the rest of the songs after that, because I think the third thing that's I'm going to answer in terms of why is this show so good and why did it work for Western audiences, its theme songs are amazing. Minus Rocks, the theme songs after are amazing. So I know this is jumping the gun for a lot of you. I had you all listen to specific songs, 3 songs. The first one is from season 3, and it is from the Chunin exam arts. It's Haruka Kanata by Asian Kung Fu Generation, which is a great band. I highly recommend. I would say this as a weeb, that this is music that I legit put onto an MP3 player or onto a CD and would listen to it in my car, and then I would roll up my window so no one knew I was listening to.
What did you say? You got laid in college? Like,
and I'd be in my car and like, going like, you too. See what people think. So what did you guys think? Did you agree with me that like, this is badass music? This is the first one to actually take like real artists and make their song sound good.
So I actually don't have of course, I didn't sit through as many episodes as you did.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have an issue with the first theme
No?
song.
Talk me through it.
I kind of dug it. Of the three you gave us, Haruka Kanata, Seishun Koyukyoso, and
Perfect.
Namikaze Satellite.
Yeah.
Believe it.
100%.
I liked Kanata the most. It was the
Yeah.
most punk rocky,
I
like,
love
you know,
It made me
lots of
feel like-
snare. Like,
Yeah, it's like it's the one that started. I told you the bass line. Like if you had rudimentary guitar skills, you could probably pull this song off.
right.
And I love that song. It's the Chunin exam arc song, and it's really good. My favorite one is Seishun Kyoku Kyosu, which I know is exactly what you said, Garrett. And I'm gonna play it right now. And I would say I'm gonna tell you a funny story about this song.
It's so emo, Kyle.
It is, but like if you know the story, this is the Sasuke retrieval arc, and if you know what's happening in that story with that song, it is so perfect that I got so excited to watch the show. Like that's what a good theme song does, and that's what this one does. But I kind of showed off my weebness in Japan one time because part of Japanese culture is that after you get done working, you usually go drink with your boss. And I went out with a whole bunch of coworkers after work, and we went to do karaoke and drink. And they were all picking songs, and some were picking like "Firework" by Katy Perry and stuff like that. I'm like, "You got this, guys. This is perfect." And they were hoping I was going to pick American songs, but I picked Seishun Kyoku Kyotsu, and I nailed it. I was like, I've heard that song so many times. It was before I knew Japanese. It's just like if you learn Crossroads by Bone Thugs and Harmony, but you don't know any of the lyrics, and you just kind of sing like what you think they're saying, like and I'm on salmon, and I'm on salmon, it's like that, and I pulled it off so well that they were like really excited for me. And someone goes, "Naruto, right?" And I was like, it was the Viva Pinata of karaoke moments. So and then yeah, the Snokel's Namikaze Satellite's pretty good too, but it wasn't the top one. So you said ranking it's Haruka Kanata, Seishun, followed by Snokel. Is that what you said? 1, 2, 3?
That was the order in which we listened to them.
Right.
But the first one, Kanata, is like the best.
It's the best one. And you think
I agree. I agree as well.
Right. It's very thunderous, it's very thing. And I would switch the two. I think I love Seishun Kyoku Kyotsu the best. I would have Haruka Kanata second.
Sensitive soul over there.
But I also
Now,
yeah.
question for the Weeb: were these songs created for Naruto, or are they like repurposed for the show? Because some of them seem to fit a little better than the others, and I get like the art that goes through and the story arcs that are happening, but are these actually made and commissioned for the show?
I would say that I don't know. I wish I could answer those questions sufficiently. I think that they were songs that were made before the anime, but then the studio said, "Hey, can we use this for the show?" And then it fit just perfectly. And a lot of the like anime music that comes out now is kind of very J-rocky. So like, you know, just kind of pull and, you know, pick and pull. We don't have too much rock here. Like if we wanted to do our version of anime, we'd have to settle for whatever Mumford Sons came out with. You know, that would be our version of it, but for them it's a little easier. So
rock is not dead.
It's dead, Garrett. It's not only dead, but it's dead with a guy with a banjo going, "Hey!" over it. And that's what
First of all, that's not even Mumford and Sons. Secondly, Mumford and Sons is good. Thirdly,
I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying it's not rock. I'm saying it's good.
There's absolutely rock. You just have to reach further than your radio dial, but continue.
You got to reach into your kosher barrel of pickles at your Williamsburg deli to really.
This is not a Seth Rogen HBO movie with a time-traveling pickle maker.
Oh my God! Well, we're now off course. I would say the next thing that we usually do, Tavis and Garrett, is I ask the question. Would you keep watching, and what are some things you're looking forward to? Garrett, your answer is probably going to be a little bit different than Tavis's, but Garrett, I'll start with you. Garrett, would you keep watching with what you've seen so far?
Yes, because we're going to have to discuss it in future episodes.
If you didn't have to, though, would you watch it? Would you watch it? Like, is it something that would...
Oh, I don't know. We're now 23 episodes deep. and you're exposing me to a lot of stuff I like and a lot of stuff I don't like. And it was fun, and if it was on TV now versus pre this episode, I would not turn it off.
Okay.
I would allow it to play and be like, oh, what's going on in Naruto world today? That said, I would not seek it out with all the media that is available to me, including all the anime that is available to me.
Even knowing that this is probably the top popular one out there, you still think
Yeah, and that's going to pop the score for me a little bit, but clearly my taste in anime, which we're starting to cultivate, develop, round out, polish, it exists. I'm down for anime. This is not in the wheelhouse. It's good. I get it. Not in my wheelhouse.
Got it. So Tavis, knowing that we made you watch it again, this is something you've had history with, you kind of know where it's going. Knowing that, would you continue watching if you were given the chance? Say you had like a Saturday without a wife and you were just alone with your TV, like what would you?
You know what I'm really excited for is the live action Naruto that's going to come, because the live action Mulan was such a success. And Naruto, it's such a staple. So when I started rewatching it, a huge part of my interest was nostalgia. And so it's like watching the Goonies again. It's like this is a part of my life.
That's exactly what I thought.
I
it's
remember.
Like the Goonies. Yeah. I thought the same thing. I was like,
is there a chunk?
There is a chunk, and he comes out in frog form later. But I think in its state that Garrett has watched, I understand that statement. But I find myself right now wanting to jump in with Naruto and Gaara and getting in there, just getting back into Shippuden. And that's like I think you've rekindled my Naruto flame with this.
Absolutely.
Let's cross our fingers for that live action.
I love it. And because what is the Szechuan sauce that they come out with for the Naruto live action? I would say for me, just like you said, Tavis, it hits a nostalgia for me. And I found myself going, I like this show for different reasons now. When I watched Naruto originally, I watched it as a kid in college. Someone who liked Naruto and I kind of thought myself more as Naruto in that sense. Wanting to be understood, wanting to be known, wanting to be appreciated, wanting to be known basically and seen. And I saw him grow in it, and you want to grow with that person. It's kind of what Weebs look for, is how can you vicariously live through this experience of these main characters. Now I find myself kind of seeing myself thinking about having kids one day, being a parent myself, kind of thinking of myself as Haruka Sensei, right? I feel like I want to be the one that cultivates the future Naruto, that wants to be the one that cultivates the kid that doesn't quite get it, but you really want him to understand it. So
nerd alert.
So I honestly think, so for me, I'm appreciating it like you do, Tavis, with nostalgia, but I also appreciate it as someone that is understanding the child development experience through this show and liking it from a 5,000 foot angle and liking it for that reason. So
if I can just hop back into the conversation regarding it, it's every cliche of anime that I've learned in these past 6 months exists within Naruto. However, when they hit it, I don't care if it's the hungry, always the ramen thing, which they stole from Goku and Dragon Ball Z.
Right.
I don't care if it's the nosebleed. I don't care. Whatever it is, all of the stereotypes are here. But they hit really well in this show.
Agreed. And it gets to him quicker. One Piece takes a long time to get to the point. Naruto gets to it in 4 episodes, which to you, Garrett, might be a little longer, but in the span of what normally anime does with these shonen things, like Dragon Ball Z, you're 3 months in, they're still charging up. This show gets to the point a little quicker.
You always ask me what I'm looking forward to.
Right.
Will Naruto ever give me the equivalent of One Piece's Nami breasts?
Yes. I will just easily answer that question. It's shown in anime, so obviously. Tavis,
Yeah.
so Tavis, what are some things you're looking forward to? You've obviously got the Shippuden. You kind of know a little bit about the show. What are some things you're hoping to learn from the show? We're obviously going to check in with you again later about the show when we revisit it, but what are some things you're looking forward to with the show?
Naruto's, for all his dynamic personality and his interactions with his interpersonal abilities, he really has one goal, and it's to be a Hokage. Like, and he needs his face on Mount Rushmore. Like, it has to happen in that Leaf Village. It's not just one. So I guess for me to experience fulfillment with the show from where I'm at, like, he has to achieve this goal. And being the best ninja and beating up everyone and fighting everyone, that's great. But we need to etch a mountain for this guy.
I agree. I think for me, I agree with you. I thought the same thing. If it's like the Pirate King, One Piece has been going on for more than 25 years, right? It's been going on a while. If he doesn't become the Pirate King, I'm going to Japan. I'm kicking the author in the face. Like, don't set it up and then just don't give me payoff. And I hope I'm not going to spoil anything, so I'm going to say I hope you get that 2 Tavis because that's what I wanted. And I'm going to tell you another great story about that involves Tavis. I finished the manga before I finished the anime. And the manga ended, and I felt this sense of, like, emptiness because Naruto wasn't the show that I watched. It was this thing that I did weekly. It's like when Peanuts ended, right?
Whoa. Peanuts is over?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, continue, please.
Charlie Brown's not a Hokage.
No, he didn't make it Hokage. He was supposed to kick the football, and that many years didn't make it. So I think Peanuts is being done by Schultz's son, but it's not the same. It's just
the football just turns into a log.
Like a big cloud goes up. Lucy like turns into multiple versions of herself. Peppermint Patty finally. And so for me, I would say, I was done, and I felt this like real emptiness. And then I said, I have no one to talk to about this in my mind because I was like, manga still at that time was like something I didn't share with people except for Tavis. And me and Tavis probably we were like on and off speaking, but we weren't like huge like we are now, like speaking to each other more often. And I literally texted Tavis as soon as I got finished with the last chapter of Naruto, and I go, Tavis, I just finished Naruto, and I just didn't know who else to tell. I feel terrible. And then Tavis goes, "That's funny." And I felt better. I was like, I'm glad I made his day. I'm glad I got closure, and I just needed to tell somebody about it. So I appreciate you being there for me. Last thing we do every episode is it's called a Weeb and Noob score for you, Tavis, and for those out there that don't know what the Weeb and Noob score. This doesn't signify whether the show is good or bad. You're not ranking it by goodness. What you're ranking on is how important it is to watch right now. If it is high on the level, what you're saying is close the laptop, get in front of your Crunchyroll, and watch it immediately because it's really important that you watch it. Something low on the score is not saying it's good or bad, but that you can put it away. This thing is a dime a dozen, or it's really hard to watch. So for me, I give Naruto and because of how important it was to me, a 9. Now I give it this score, and I believe fully that this is nostalgia glasses on me, but I also feel like, as opposed to Bleach and One Piece, I feel like I got more satisfaction out of Naruto. Out of all the 3 that we're going to cover in the big 3, Naruto had the most satisfaction, most immediacy. Just like Garrett said, it was easy candy, popcorn. I can pick it up and watch it at my leisure. I can put it away for a couple months and still come to it. It was that important in my life. So for that, I'm going to give it a very biased 9.0. Garrett, as a noob, what would you say to new fans as it goes?
7.5.
Mm-hmm.
My personal score would be a 6. 6.5.
And know that we're rating season 1, by the way. You have not watched it.
However, when you put the heavily weighted influence of what this means to anime in general, which is probably about a 9, it averages out to a 7.5.
Understood.
I'm at a place in my life where I do not have the nostalgia that you have. I do not have I appreciate the silliness and the show. I giggled a few times out loud, and my dogs looked at me like, what is he laughing at? There's no one else in the house. Mama is not making him laugh.
Right.
And I enjoyed it. but it's a show whose my time has passed it, and I appreciate it for what it is, and I appreciate the gravity of the show, but that's why I think I'm being generous with the average of 7.5.
And I would agree with you. For new fans, it's like, to answer the question of like, should you start? It's like you're in for a ride. You gotta really stick with it in order to get there. And just like anything else, if you're willing to make the time for it, it's worth it. So Tavis,
right, and think about it. When you're in elementary school, when you're in high school, when you're in college, when you just move into your first apartment in New York City, how much downtime do you have to watch this? The answer: all the time you want. But when you're married or you have a kid or you have a family, it's nice to binge things, but this is probably not going to come up on the list.
Got it. So Tavis, as someone who has watched it before, kind of revisited it, what would you say to someone who wants to possibly watch this? What would you rank it out of 10?
Yeah, so I think it's a solid 8. And where I'm approaching this from is, if you have not watched anime and you're coming at this from the noob perspective, then this will build the foundation for what you're about to experience. And if you go off and you start branching out into the other anime there, and you come back to this, you'll find it a little lacking, because they all shaped their programs off of this,
Right?
And so you'll miss that foundation. This will carry you through your existence of anime. So I would say, if you're new to anime, you got to watch this. And if you're old to anime and you haven't watched this, like, get that experience and just understand what it's at. Yeah, like, hey, yeah, like, take it for what it is. Turn it on, enjoy the story. It's gonna carry you through, the full dynamic characters, and it's gonna be a good ride.
I agree. This show benefits a lot from nostalgia. It benefits a lot from the hype, and sometimes you just gotta. It has to hit you where it hits you. If it doesn't, then that's okay, and that's what I agree with. And we're going to revisit it, especially because I feel like later seasons are better, and we hope, Tavis, you join us on that episode as well as future ones, because we think your perspective is very important and unique for us. So we thank you for joining.
Believe it.
But basically, it's great to always have our friends join us. It's great to have new people experience things that you like, but it's really just important to hear your thoughts. Is Naruto one of those shows that is just the quintessential piece of anime that you have to watch? Or is it something that is kind of past its time? It's something that, if you didn't appreciate it in the early 2000s, it might go the way of Bewitched or something like that. So let us know in the comments below, because we want to keep the conversation going, especially for one as influential as this show. Follow us on anchor.fm/Wanwa Podcast, as well as on Instagram @Wanwa Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter @Weeb_Noob, and make sure you subscribe and comment and rate us on everywhere your podcasts are found. But before we close off, Garrett, do you have any final thoughts on Naruto?
This is a show you gotta watch. Believe it!
So now we're going to be crossing our fingers, mutating into frogs, putting our fingers up each other's butts, and wishing you all a great. See you next week.
Take care, y'all.
Make sure you tap on that subscribe button, then make a few clones of yourself and have them subscribe too.
Here at Wanwa, we're dedicated to watching all anime, but in particular, the big 3. But what's next? What do you think is the big 3? Put your comments below.